When I woke up in the hospital with one leg and 0 visitors, I figured maybe they hadn't heard yet. Maybe my mom's phone was off. Maybe my dad was busy. Maybe my sister had a yoga retreat where phones were bad for the vibe. Day 2, I started making excuses for them. Day 6, I stopped. The blast that cost me my leg happened in Syria, but the real damage came from silence. I was 27. Army mechanic. 5 years in, solid record, good team. I wasn't out there kicking doors, but I kept the machines running that brought the guys back. Until one didn't. One routine maintenance check turned chaotic. A secondary device, tucked under the frame of an abandoned vehicle, went off before I even touched the undercarriage. I don't remember the blast. I remember the moment after. The ringing. The feeling of weightlessness. Then the screaming. Someone else's at first. Then mine. I spent the next week in a military hospital overseas. Morphine dreams. Bandages. White noise. Nurses with kind eyes and clipped voices. Eventually, they flew me to a military rehab facility in Texas. And that's where the real injury started. Because I was alive. I was lucky, they said. But luck feels hollow when you're staring at the space where your left leg used to be and your family hasn't so much as called. No card. No. We're proud of you. Not even a, when are you coming home? I tried to pretend it didn't bother me. But here's the truth, I'd always been the background child. My sister Melanie was the golden one. Cheer captain. Academic star. Graduated into a high-paying PR job straight out of college. My parents called her a magnet for greatness. I was the quiet one who fixed things. Lawnmower broke? I fixed it. Internet went down. I was under the desk before anyone else noticed. When I enlisted, my mom cried, not out of pride. Out of embarrassment. She said, "I thought you were better than this." My dad didn't say anything. He just went back to watching golf. Still, part of me thought that when something bad happened, really bad, they'd show up. People surprise you during tragedy, right? They didn't. Not at the hospital. Not after the surgery. Not during the amputation. Not when I learned how to use crutches with a phantom limb that screamed at night. My bunkmate got flowers from his ex. Another guy's fourth cousin flew in from Atlanta. I got silence. Except from one person, Amanda. She was a military liaison assigned to help with post-discharge planning. Blonde streaks in her brown hair, calm voice, eyes that didn't blink when I got frustrated. "You got family coming in?" she asked one day. I shrugged. "Probably not." She tilted her head. "Want me to call anyone for you?" I thought about it. Then shook my head. If they wanted to talk, they would have by now. She nodded like she understood. And maybe she did. Weeks passed. I worked through therapy. Learned to walk with the prosthetic. Took notes, stretched, sweated, bled. The physical pain sucked, but it had an endpoint. The emotional part? That one dragged. Then came the paperwork. Veterans Affairs. Medical reports. Injury classifications. Benefits. Claims. Disability ratings. Lawyers. Accountants. More forms than I knew existed. Amanda helped me file a claim with the Department of Defense for traumatic injury compensation. I didn't expect much. "You're eligible for a significant settlement," she said, walking me through the forms. I raised an eyebrow. "Significant like what? A new microwave?" She smiled, then showed me the numbers. And I almost dropped the pen. Months passed. I transferred to outpatient care. Got an apartment near the facility. Started part-time work fixing up old motorcycles with a local shop that didn't mind the limp. The check came 6 months after my injury. $517,000. Tax-free. Lump sum. It was wired to my account on a Tuesday. That Thursday, my mom called. For the first time in almost a year. "Hi, sweetheart." My mom's voice came through the speaker, syrupy and fake like Splenda in sweet tea. "I've been thinking about you so much lately." I nearly dropped my phone. It wasn't the words. It was the fact that she'd finally bothered. I didn't say anything right away. I wanted to hear where this was going. "I saw your name on Facebook the other day," she continued. Melanie said you were out of the hospital now. You didn't call to tell us. I didn't call? I almost laughed, but the sound got stuck in my throat. You okay? She asked, as if this was just a casual check-in after a coffee break. You sound tired. Yeah, I said slowly. Healing from an amputation'll do that to you. A beat of silence. Oh. Well, you know we would have come if we knew it was serious. Mom, I lost a leg, I said flatly. She cleared her throat. Yes, well. These things happen. You always were so brave. We didn't want to overwhelm you with our presence. We figured you'd call when you were ready. Overwhelm me? They ghosted me like I was a Tinder match they regretted. Actually. She perked up suddenly, like she remembered the real reason for the call. Your dad and I were just talking about visiting. Maybe this weekend? Why now? I asked bluntly. Oh, come on, don't be like that, she chirped. We miss you. And Melanie's in town too. Wouldn't it be nice to have everyone together again? Melanie. Of course. The perfect storm of selfishness. Does she know? I asked. Know what? I hesitated but then said it. About the settlement. Silence. Then. I don't know what you mean. Right. Sure. It's a total coincidence that I hadn't heard from any of them in over a year, and suddenly, magically, they want a family brunch just 2 days after $500,000 hit my account. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. Or worse, something true. They showed up anyway. Saturday morning, I opened the front door to see my mom in a beige trench coat, holding a casserole dish like it was a peace offering. My dad stood next to her, uncomfortable in his own skin. Melanie was in the back seat of a rental SUV, scrolling her phone like this was a chore. Surprise, Mom said brightly, holding up the casserole. We figured we'd just show up. That way you couldn't say no. I stared at them, unsure whether to slam the door or laugh in their faces. Instead, I stepped aside. Sure. Come in. They acted like nothing happened. Sat on my couch, complimented the IKEA furniture, asked me where I got the rug. My dad commented on my flat-screen TV. I didn't know mechanics paid this well, he said, half joking. They don't, I replied. He nodded, slowly connecting the dots. I saw it, the flicker of recognition in his eyes. He knew. They all knew. And they weren't here to reconnect. They were here to claim. Did the army give you anything for what happened? My mom asked over lunch, slicing into the most joyless lasagna I've ever tasted. Yeah, I said casually. They did all right. She smiled too fast. That's good. You deserve it. And you know, if you ever need help managing anything, I mean, these kinds of things come with a lot of paperwork and responsibilities, your father and I are here for you. There it is. I leaned back, watching them squirm in real time, like snakes on a skillet. What exactly are you offering, Mom? I asked. You want to manage my money? She laughed nervously. Oh no, of course not. Just, if you wanted to set up a joint account, or maybe help us refinance the house. Well, it's been a hard year. I turned to my dad. You co-signing on that idea too? He shifted in his chair. You know your sister's trying to start a business. He muttered. Just thought you might want to support family. Help us all get back on our feet. They weren't subtle. They weren't even ashamed. Just entitled. My entire childhood flashed through my mind like a slideshow from hell. My sister getting braces, dance classes, her own car at 16. Me? I got told, the army's a good option for boys like you. She got a graduation trip to Italy. I got a lecture on how community college was a scam unless you pay for it yourself. And now? Now they wanted me to play ATM just because I made it out alive? I stood up. I've got a financial advisor, I said coldly. And a lawyer. And a will. Melanie looked up from her phone finally. What? You made a will? Yeah, I said. Guess who's not in it? The second I said, guess who's not in it? The room turned colder than the lasagna. Melanie scoffed. Wow. You've really turned into a jerk. I didn't flinch. Funny. That's exactly what I thought when you didn't even send a card after I lost a leg. My mom blinked, lips twitching into a practiced frown. That's not fair. We were overwhelmed. Yeah? I was unconscious for 2 days. Try that. She set her fork down like I'd offended the sacred table. We just didn't know how to handle it, honey. We figured you'd call when you were ready. You thought silence was support? I asked. You didn't even text. My dad finally chimed in. You could have picked up the phone too. But here we are, us making the effort, and you throwing it in our face. I smiled without warmth. Making the effort? You mean showing up after my bank account went viral in the family group chat? No one responded. The silence told me everything. We thought maybe you'd want to help the family. My mom said carefully now. With the house, or your sister's business. A little help could go a long way. There it was. Melanie finally looked up from her phone. It's not even about the money. It's about family. You don't just cut people off. Didn't realize you all had a problem with cutting someone off. I said. Considering you did it to me without hesitation. All right. My dad snapped. Enough. We came to reconnect. You're clearly not interested. I stood and opened the door. Glad we're on the same page. As they shuffled out, my mom turned and asked, Is this really how you want things to be? I stared at her. You made things this way, I said. I'm just living in the house you all abandoned. They didn't stay quiet for long. That week, my phone lit up with a dozen messages from cousins I hadn't heard from since high school. Friend requests. Just checking in. Texts. Even my uncle, who once called me dead weight, sent a meme with a winking emoji and a proud of you, soldier. Melanie texted next. You've really hurt Mom. She hasn't stopped crying. Was that your goal? I stared at the message. I cried alone in a hospital bed for 6 weeks. So yeah, maybe. But I didn't send it. I wasn't interested in starting fires. I just didn't want them pretending they never lit the first match. Amanda swung by later with final paperwork on the settlement. She glanced at me. They visit yet? I nodded. Came for a casserole and left with a bruised ego. She smirked. Let me guess, they offered to help manage things. More like suggested I refinance their life. Amanda handed me a checklist. Then it's time to lock things down. No co-signing. No helping out. People get weird around money they didn't earn. Already ahead of her. My financial advisor had set up everything in a trust, airtight and lawsuit-proof. And my new favorite sentence? Talk to my lawyer? It started with a Facebook post. A filtered photo of my mom holding an old framed picture of me in uniform. The caption? We're so proud of our brave son. Even though he's chosen distance lately, he'll always be our hero. Broken Heart United States, please send prayers. The comments section was a mess of heart emojis and people tagging Bible verses. At first, I stared at the post like it was in a different language. Not once did she mention the injury, the hospital, the silence, the abandonment. Just vague sadness designed to bait sympathy and control the narrative. The next day, Melanie jumped in with a post of her own. A photo from when I was in high school, standing awkwardly at her college graduation. My brother has been through so much. Wishing he'd let us support him. Families should stick together, not push each other away. Push each other away? I hadn't pushed. I'd been left. I didn't reply. But I saved the screenshots. By day 3, my inbox was full of messages from extended relatives and family friends who hadn't spoken to me in years. She's devastated. Please talk to your mom. Why are you doing this to them? They just want to see you. Money comes and goes. Family doesn't. Oh, but it does, when they vanish the moment you're no longer useful. I called Amanda. Told her what was happening. Her response was dry and surgical. Public guilt campaigns. They're a classic tactic, she said. Ignore it unless they make legal threats. But if they start twisting the facts, document everything. Trust me, this is their panic mode. And she was right. Because 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not from a lawyer. From my mom. Handwritten, cream-colored stationery, her signature perfume still clinging to the envelope like manipulation has a scent. Inside was a full essay on how money was changing me, how they never asked for anything, and how I was destroying the family. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the hospital, no mention of the leg. Just pure, distilled guilt, like she'd Googled how to emotionally corner your adult child, and followed the steps word for word. At the bottom, scrawled in dramatic cursive, "If your father dies of stress, I hope you can live with that." I didn't tear the letter up. I filed it. I wasn't angry. I was ready. The last straw came when I found out about the GoFundMe. It was buried under my sister's social accounts. Titled, "Help Our Parents Recover from a Difficult Year Broke a Heart." The story? A heartbreakingly vague tale of a son who shut them out after a tragedy, leaving them with mounting debts, hospital anxiety, and emotional trauma. $4,300 raised in 3 days. And not a single word about why any of it happened. Not a whisper about who went through the actual trauma, who got the surgeries, who cried himself to sleep for months while their phones stayed silent. That was it. I was done letting them narrate my life like I was a ghost who ruined their happy story. I called my lawyer. "I want a statement drafted," I said. "Public. Simple. Just the truth." She didn't ask questions. Just said, "Give me a few hours." The statement was 3 paragraphs. Clear. Calm. Legal enough to avoid lawsuits, but sharp enough to slice through their fairy tale. It explained what had happened to me. That I was injured in service. That my family hadn't visited, called, or supported me in recovery. That any attempts to leverage my situation for financial gain were being documented. And then the final line. "Please respect my privacy and stop contacting me." My recovery and peace of mind are not part of anyone's fundraising strategy. I posted it publicly, pinned it to my profiles, and blocked them all. I thought the statement would end it. I was wrong. 3 days after posting it, I got a letter. Certified mail. Real legal letterhead. Real lawyer signature. Inside, a formal notice of concern from my parents' attorney, accusing me of defamation, emotional distress, and damaging their reputation through misleading public commentary. They actually hired someone to scare me. After ignoring me for a year. After pretending my hospital bed didn't exist. Now they were playing legal chicken, hoping I'd swerve first. They clearly didn't know who they were dealing with. I called my lawyer, Heather. Calm, sharp, ex-military herself. She read the letter and snorted. "Please tell me this clown used Gmail." "Yahoo!" I said. She laughed. "Even better. This isn't a real threat, it's a bluff. But we're going to treat it like an opportunity." I raised an eyebrow. "Opportunity?" She grinned. "To counter-strike." She drafted a reply within a day. Cease and desist. Legal language with the bite of a German shepherd. In it, she outlined everything: the injury, the hospitalization, the year of silence, the sudden reappearance once the money hit, the GoFundMe campaign, the guilt letters, and the vague public smears. We included screenshots, timestamps, and scanned copies of their own words. And then we delivered the kill shot. If further harassment, manipulation, or attempts to financially exploit Mr. Redacted continue, we will pursue a formal civil action under applicable fraud and defamation statutes. She sent it certified. Copied to their lawyer. Copied to the GoFundMe team. Copied to me, framed honestly, because it read like poetry. That same day, Melanie posted a new message. A long, dramatic apology. Sort of. Some things were said that shouldn't have been public. Emotions ran high. Our family is going through a difficult time. We wish our brother the best. A classic non-apology. No ownership. No clarity. Just vague retreat disguised as grace. But I wasn't waiting for a real apology anymore. I'd already stopped being their story. Now I was writing my own. A few days later, I walked into a meeting with a local nonprofit that supported wounded veterans. Amanda had referred me. They were launching a housing initiative for injured vets who couldn't afford accessible spaces. They wanted help with outreach. Maybe some technical input. Just volunteer stuff. They said. I told them I was in. They didn't ask for money. Didn't care about my backstory. They just wanted someone who showed up. So I did. 2 weeks passed. The GoFundMe disappeared. Melanie's posts dried up. My mom deleted the original Facebook photo. The one holding the frame like grief was a prop. And slowly, the silence returned. But this time, it felt earned. Not abandonment. Not exile. Just distance. The kind you create when you finally, firmly, shut the door. Then one morning Amanda called. You might want to sit down for this. What now? I asked, already bracing. Your mom's trying to access your military injury records. She called the VA pretending to be your spouse. My jaw clenched. You're kidding. I wish. She'd used my full name. Birth date. Claimed she was helping with medical processing. The clerk flagged it. Reported it. It was a felony. Now it wasn't just guilt trips and rumors. It was identity fraud. The next morning, I was sitting in my truck outside the rehab center, gripping the steering wheel like it owed me answers. Identity fraud. My mother had actually impersonated my spouse to get access to confidential VA documents. For what? A copy of my disability payout? My medical files? Proof she could twist into some justification? Amanda had flagged it fast and escalated it to the office of the Inspector General. A federal report was filed. I didn't even need to push it. They take this seriously. She told me. She committed a federal crime. You just have to give the green light. I did. That afternoon, I signed the paperwork to formally initiate the case. It felt surreal, like signing divorce papers from a family that had never really been married to me in the first place. The fallout was instant. Within 48 hours, my parents received a notice from the VA's legal division. Melanie texted me in a panic. Mom's freaking out. There's a government letter. What did you do? I ignored it. That evening, I got an email from my dad. The subject line just said, "This is beyond petty." Inside, it was 5 paragraphs of whining. About stress. About humiliation. About how I was airing private family matters in public. No mention of impersonation. No apology. Just more gaslight wrapped in guilt. They hadn't learned a thing. The nonprofit I'd been volunteering with heard about it somehow. Probably through Amanda. The director, Craig, called me in. I braced for awkwardness, but he just handed me a coffee and said, "You know, we've got a paid role opening up. Outreach coordinator. Thought of you first." I blinked. You're serious? You show up. You're organized. You've lived the experience we're trying to support. That's gold. I accepted on the spot. A new job. A new title. A paycheck that felt earned, not inherited. Meanwhile, the VA's investigation kept moving. My lawyer, Heather, advised me to stay silent publicly, but privately, she was collecting everything. Screenshots. Messages. Voicemails. Even the post office log showing my mother had signed for one of the documents. "You don't need to chase justice," she said. "You're standing still. It's chasing them." I liked that. Because it was true. For once, I wasn't running damage control. I wasn't trying to keep the peace or patch the leaks. I was just standing. Firm. Melanie tried calling again. Then texting. Then tagging me in a post about cyberbullying from within your own family. That one made me laugh. It had a sad selfie attached, like she was the one who lost something. And in a way, maybe she had. But not to cruelty. To consequences. When the federal investigator finally called to interview me, it was surprisingly casual. She asked how long it had been since my injury. If my family had access to any of my benefits. If I had authorized anyone to request my medical files. I answered simply. No. No. And hell no. She thanked me. Said they'd be following up directly with the parties involved. I hung up and just sat there for a while, soaking in the quiet. No heart monitor beeping. No rehab therapist pushing me to take one more step. Just silence. But this time, it was mine. 2 weeks after my VA interview, Heather texted me a single line. Your mother's been officially charged. Impersonating a spouse to access federal records is a felony. No slap on the wrist. No warning. The VA sent the notice, and her response window was already ticking down. They had her voice on record. The exact phrasing. Her attempts to use my military ID number. The whole thing logged and time-stamped like a badly written crime drama. Heather said. They're offering her a chance to plead out. Federal monitoring, fines, no jail, but she'd be flagged for life. I asked if I needed to respond. You already did, she said. By not backing down. That same night, Melanie posted a blurry photo of herself crying in a dim room. Caption. Hurting. Healing. Hopeful. Family matters are never simple. Comments poured in. Mostly sympathy. A few raised eyebrows. Nobody knew the full story, but the dramatics were working overtime. I didn't reply. I just took a screenshot, saved it in a folder called Selective Memory, and moved on. That weekend I stopped by Craig's office at the nonprofit to go over next month's veteran outreach event. He slid a folder across the desk. You've got 3 interview requests. 1 podcast, 2 veteran org blogs. Me? I blinked. Why? You're a wounded vet who stood up to toxic family dynamics and legal threats. That's like catnip for every burnout soldier we know. I smirked. Tell them I only talk for tacos. He laughed. Noted. Before I left, he added. By the way, Amanda says hi. She's been watching the updates. She's still working the inpatient cases? Yeah. She says you're the story she brings up when soldiers start saying they've got no one. That hit harder than I expected. Monday morning, someone knocked on my door. It was barely 8:30. I checked the peephole. Melanie. Alone. No cameras. No Instagram-ready outfit. Just her, in a hoodie and tear-smeared eyeliner. I cracked the door but didn't open wide. Please, she said quietly. I just need 2 minutes. I waited. Then stepped out onto the porch but didn't invite her in. She looked tired. Puffy eyes. Voice raw. Mom's freaking out. They got the letter. They say she might be flagged for life, that she could lose access to credit, health stuff. Even her job could find out. She should have considered that before committing a felony, I said. She was scared. No, she was greedy. Big difference. Melanie wrapped her arms around herself. She thought you'd forgiven us. Or at least wouldn't press charges. She didn't ask for forgiveness, I said. She just assumed she deserved it. She didn't mean to hurt you. I stared at her. Then why'd she disappear when I was in a hospital bed missing a limb? Melanie's voice cracked. She didn't know what to say. She could have said anything. She chose nothing. For a year. Silence settled in like fog. Then she whispered, We just want things to go back. To what? I asked. Back to you all pretending I don't exist until I get a check? She opened her mouth, closed it. I'm not your villain, I added. But I'm also not your safety net. Melanie blinked. So that's it? We're done? I looked her in the eyes. You finished the goodbye when you never showed up to say hello. Then I turned around and walked back inside. Heather called that evening. They're sending you a formal apology, she said. Typed. Signed. Offered through the attorney they hired, who, by the way, is charging them hourly now. I laughed. Should I frame it? Trash it. Or burn it? Your call. Later, I opened the envelope. A 2-page letter. Filled with careful, sterile language. Legal-sounding remorse. No real ownership. No direct line about the hospital, the silence, or the lie. Just guilt-shaped smoke. I folded it back up and dropped it into a drawer. Not because I cared. But because I might need it someday. That night, I stared at my prosthetic leaning against the wall. A year ago, it felt like a reminder of everything I'd lost. Now, it felt like proof that I'd survived what was supposed to break me. And I didn't owe anyone a damn thing for it. 3 months passed. No more calls. No more surprise knocks. No more public weeping disguised as Healing posts. Just quiet. I thought maybe I'd feel empty when the noise stopped. But I didn't. I felt peace. Like walking out of a burning house and finally smelling fresh air. One afternoon, I walked past a bookstore near my new job and saw a kid about 12 in an oversized camo jacket, trying to fix the chain on his bike. I stopped and helped him. Didn't think much of it. Then his mom came over and thanked me. Said, "You're the guy who gave that talk at the center, right?" I nodded. She smiled. "My husband said it's the first time he's slept through the night since coming home. He said your story made him feel seen." That stuck with me longer than anything my family had ever said. I didn't block them. I didn't need to. They weren't coming back, not as they were anyway. Melanie posted less. My dad deleted his account altogether. And my mom, well, someone told me she started going to church again. Maybe she was looking for grace in a place that didn't require a bank statement. Good for her. I hope she found it. But she wasn't going to find it in me. At work, things grew fast. I was promoted to Director of Outreach. I helped develop a program connecting newly discharged soldiers with veteran mentors, people who'd actually lived the recovery, not just recited it from brochures. One of them was Amanda. She grinned when she saw me walk into the training session in a button-down and slacks. "Damn," she said. "Look who's got a desk now." "Don't get used to it," I replied. "I'm still better with wrenches." She laughed, then leaned in. "You're the one we tell new guys about, you know. The quiet fighter." I didn't know what to say. So I just nodded. The last message I got from my family came in the form of a certified letter. Another apology. Short this time. Not typed, handwritten. Sloppy. Uneven. From my dad. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't defend himself. Didn't even sign it. "Love, Dad." Just signed it with his name. Like he finally understood that being my father wasn't a right anymore. It was a title he gave up. I folded the letter in half and stuck it inside the same folder as the GoFundMe screenshots, the lawyer threats, and my mom's federal charge notice. Not out of hate. Just to remind myself where I came from, and how far I'd walked since. A few weeks ago, I spoke at a high school ROTC banquet. First time I stood in front of strangers without notes. I told them the truth. That service teaches you who you are, and sometimes who you're not. That not all wounds are visible. That family doesn't always show up. And when they don't, you still can. For yourself. When I got home that night, I sat on my porch, legs stretched out, the sky burned orange from the sunset. And I realized something. They never came to visit me in the hospital. But I left the hospital. I stood up anyway. And I never needed them to clap. I just needed to walk away.